My phone pinged just as I was signing Eli out of daycare. I glanced down, expecting a quick message from Mark about dinner. Maybe something like, "Should I pick up Ty?" Instead, I froze mid-signature as the word stared back at me like a punch to the gut. Moving to Lisbon with Chloe. I've transferred our savings to my private account. Good luck paying rent. I blinked. My hand trembled slightly over the pen. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Eli tugged at my sleeve, his bright eyes looking up at me with innocent excitement. "Mommy, did you bring my dinosaur snacks today?" I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart." I completed the sign-out sheet with a hand that barely functioned and typed a response to Mark, though my mind was screaming. "Thanks for the update." 3 words. Calm on the surface, but underneath? A hurricane? Chloe. His assistant. The one I had brought cupcakes for last Christmas. The one who sent polite emails and called me Mrs. Lawson. 8 years of careful planning and shared dreams, gone in one cruel message. And our apartment? Rent was due in 3 days. We had counted every penny to survive on one income after Eli was born. Now we had none. My name is Kendra Lawson, I'm 38, a freelance editor, and the mother of a 4-year-old boy who has no idea his world has just cracked wide open. And apparently, I'm also the soon-to-be ex-wife of a man who didn't have the decency to leave a note in person. What I wanted was simple: stability for my son, a chance to build a life where I wasn't always playing catch-up to Mark's reckless impulses. Instead, I was now staring down a financial abyss with a toddler in my arms and no warning. As we walked to the car, Eli looked up at me again. "Is Daddy making spaghetti tonight?" My throat tightened. "Daddy's on a trip," I said, using the first of what would likely be many carefully crafted half-truths. But guess what? We're having pizza. At home, I parked Eli in front of his favorite cartoon and shut myself in the bedroom to call the bank. The representative on the line, polite and detached, confirmed what I already suspected. Mark had indeed transferred $44,020 from our joint savings to an account solely in his name. "It's not considered theft, Mrs. Lawson," she said gently. Since both names were on the account, he had legal access. "But it was for our family," I said. "That money was meant for rent. For school." "I understand, ma'am, I really do. But from the bank's standpoint, there's nothing we can do." I logged into our checking account, praying Mark had overlooked it. $327, then 14. Our rent was $2,400, due in 72 hours. Then my phone rang again. Joanna, his mother. The moment I answered, she began barking. "What have you done, Kendra?" "Excuse me?" "Mark says you're refusing to let him see Eli, that you're demanding more alimony than he can pay." I sat on the edge of the bed, numb. "Joanna, Mark just texted me. He is moving to Portugal. He's emptied our accounts." "Don't lie to me," she snapped. "He showed me the messages. You're threatening to take Eli if he doesn't pay up. I raised a better man than that. He won't be manipulated." She hung up before I could defend myself. That's when it hit me. Mark wasn't just abandoning us. He was rewriting the narrative to make himself the victim, and me, the villain. And worse, Joanna believed him. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about truth. It was about protecting my son from a man who was erasing our history in real time. 9 years ago, I met Mark at a publishing conference in New York. I was an editor at Redline Press, hungry, driven. He worked marketing for a rival imprint, cocky but charming. He courted me with handwritten notes, weekend trips, surprise dinner reservations. It felt like a whirlwind, like the world was opening wide. 6 months later, we married by the water in Cape Cod. The first few years were sweet. I got promoted, we moved to Boston, and he transitioned into corporate branding. When Eli was born, we agreed I would stay home for a while. I shifted to freelance work while he assured me we'd be fine. That's when the changes started. He became secretive about money. Charges would pop up on our credit card, dinners, late-night ride shares. But when I asked, he'd sigh. "It's work, Kendra. You're home all day. Can you not stress me out too?" Joanna became more involved too, criticizing my parenting every time she visited. "Eli needs structure. You let him get away with too much." And Mark? He'd just shrug. 2 years ago, we sold our condo and moved into a rental. Mark convinced me the equity would be better used investing in a business opportunity with a friend. That business failed within 6 months. When I suggested going back to full-time work, he refused. "You're Eli's constant," he said. "Let me handle the rest. I've got everything under control." I believed him, even when I found the Barcelona travel guide tucked into his desk drawer last week. He claimed it was research. They might open a European office. Now I knew the truth. He wasn't planning for work. He was planning for escape. The day after that devastating text, I dropped Eli at daycare, drove straight to Mark's office, and asked to speak with him. The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry. Mark no longer works here. He resigned last week." "That's impossible," I whispered. "I just saw him Monday." She looked uncomfortable. "His last day was yesterday. I really shouldn't say more." While I was sorting Eli's preschool paperwork and planning dinner menus, Mark had been vanishing piece by piece. In the parking garage, I called Darren, Mark's closest friend. "Hey, Kendra, how are you holding up?" "You knew," I said quietly. "Didn't you? You knew he was planning to leave." A long silence. Then, "He made me promise. Said he needed a clean break." "From his child?" My voice cracked. "From 8 years of marriage." I told him it was wrong, Darren muttered. "But Chloe makes him happy. He said you'd be better off without him dragging you down." So that was it. Chloe makes him happy. I hung up and stared at the dashboard. Every dinner I made, every story I read to Eli at bedtime, every time I trusted Mark's late nights or gentle deflections, it was all a lie. When I got home, there was a certified envelope waiting. Inside, divorce papers, filed a week ago. He had listed a Lisbon address and requested full parental responsibility remain with me. No visitation, no support. He was vanishing into a new life, with our money, with our trust. And I was left behind with a 4-year-old and $300 to my name. But what Mark didn't realize, what he had always underestimated, was how fiercely I protect what matters. The morning after Mark's text and the divorce papers, I woke before sunrise. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of untouched coffee in front of me, staring at the pages that would dissolve a decade of my life. The words "irreconcilable differences" sat mockingly on the first line, as if this were a peaceful decision mutually reached. Mark's included note, coldly typed and lawyer-vetted, stated that he would not be providing spousal or child support at this time, citing mutual access to savings as a reason. That savings account he had already emptied. Mark had always been clever with language. Now he was weaponizing it. I checked on Eli, still asleep in his dinosaur pajamas, then gathered every piece of paperwork I could find. Bank statements, our marriage certificate, even old pay stubs. I needed help, and fast. By noon, I was sitting across from a sharp-eyed woman in a neat blazer, her office small but precise, just like her. Delia Klein, a family attorney recommended by my college roommate, skimmed the documents with an expression that grew colder by the minute. "Let me be clear," she said, setting down the folder. "What your husband did is morally bankrupt. But legally, it's murky. He had access to your joint accounts, so technically he didn't steal anything." My stomach turned. "But," Delia continued, "judges don't take kindly to parents who abandon their children while hiding assets, especially if we can prove he's employed and avoiding support payments." Do you have any idea where he's working now? I told her about the resume I found on his computer. It listed a position at a company in Lisbon, Meridian Global. Start date was 2 days ago. Delia's eyes narrowed. That's good. If we can confirm his employment, we can file for emergency support and potentially freeze any remaining marital assets. But we'll need hard proof. I'll find it, I promised. That night, after putting Eli to bed, I went back to Mark's old desk. I had already found his resume and a sealed birthday card from 3 months ago, written to his mother, Joanna, thanking her for helping with the deposit on the Lisbon apartment. So much for "he just left." I turned on our shared desktop, hoping to find something useful. Mark never changed his password habits. I tried a combination of Eli's birthday and our wedding anniversary. It worked. His email drafts folder was full. Most were unsent, but one caught my eye. Subject: for Chloe. Attached was the same resume, but with a note. Looking forward to our new life. This job changes everything. Another draft included scanned copies of investment statements, a breakdown of his compensation from Meridian Global, and even preliminary plans for a private account to protect future income from Kendra's leverage. Leverage? I had a child to feed. I copied everything onto a flash drive and called Delia first thing in the morning. When I arrived at her office with the flash drive and the birthday card to Joanna, her reaction was immediate. "This is exactly what we need," she said. "We can file emergency motions for temporary child support and asset freezes. If the judge sees this level of premeditation, we might even get a jurisdictional order." "Will it be enough to stop him?" I asked. Delia paused. "Enough to start pressuring him, yes. And the courts take child abandonment seriously, especially when it's paired with asset concealment." Hope stirred. But as progress was being made, another curveball arrived in my inbox: a formal settlement offer from Mark's lawyer. $5,000 in full and final resolution of all financial claims. I read it twice to be sure. That's all he thought we were worth. I forwarded it to Delia, and she called within minutes. "They're testing your desperation," she said. "Don't bite. We're going to bury them with evidence." That night, I got a message directly from Mark. "Take the settlement, Kendra. You won't get more. Dragging this out will just cost us both. Be reasonable for once." Be reasonable. The man who emptied our bank account and fled the country with his assistant had the nerve to lecture me about reason. I didn't respond. But I saved the message. Like everything else, it would become evidence. 2 days later, we got our emergency hearing date. That same afternoon, I got a strange voicemail. A woman's voice, hesitant, apologetic. "Hi. I hope this is Kendra Lawson. My name is Melanie Ortiz. I used to be Chloe's roommate. I found some of her old things and your contact info is in there. I don't know if this is out of line, but you deserve to know what they were planning." I called her back immediately. Melanie's voice was nervous but kind. She told me Chloe and Mark had been planning their clean break for months, that Chloe had been bragging about Mark hiding money in offshore accounts, and that he was setting things up so Kendra couldn't touch a dime. "They picked Portugal for a reason," Melanie said. "Residency laws. It makes legal proceedings harder across borders." By the end of the call, my hands were shaking. Mark hadn't just left. He hadn't just lied. He was trying to make sure I couldn't fight back. I brought the new intel to Delia. Her jaw clenched. "If he's trying to make this legally impossible from abroad, we'll file for international enforcement," she said. "But we need to act fast." The morning of the emergency hearing, I woke up to another text from Mark. "I hear you're dragging Mom into this. Bad move, Kendra. Drop it now, or you'll regret it." I stared at the screen, heart thudding. No, not this time. That morning, Delia and I waited outside the courtroom. The hallway buzzed with quiet tension. Then the doors opened, and in walked Mark's lawyer, slick and smug in a charcoal suit. "Mrs. Lawson," he nodded curtly. "Mr. Dwyer, representing Mark Lawson." Before I could respond, a familiar voice echoed behind him. "Joanna." She was dressed to impress, as always, and radiated cold disapproval. "You should be ashamed," she hissed as she passed me. "Extorting my son when you're the one who drove him away." Delia gently touched my arm. "Don't respond." But Joanna wasn't done. "He's doing what's best for Eli, you just want money." "Mrs. Lawson," Delia interrupted smoothly, "since you're here, I should inform you. We'll be calling you as a witness regarding your financial assistance in your son's abandonment of his family." Joanna blinked, then went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." We stepped into the courtroom. The judge was stern but attentive. He reviewed the evidence Delia submitted, Mark's employment documents, text messages, and proof of the bank withdrawals. When he granted our emergency motions for temporary support and partial asset freeze, a weight lifted off my chest. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was the first crack in the wall Mark had built. Still, one question gnawed at me. Why had Joanna flown across the Atlantic for what was, technically, a routine hearing? That answer would come soon, and it would change everything. The very next morning, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. International, with a European country code. I hesitated, then picked up. "Is this Kendra Lawson?" a woman asked with a light Portuguese accent. "My name is Lucia Vega, HR Director at Meridian Global Lisbon. I'm calling about your husband, Mark Lawson." My pulse jumped. "Yes. What about him?" "We received an email from someone identifying themselves as you," she said carefully. "It included documentation showing Mr. Lawson was involved in a custody dispute and had failed to disclose legal matters here in the U.S. He was terminated yesterday as a result." I blinked in disbelief. "I never sent any email." There was a pause. "Could I forward you the message?" Minutes later, I was staring at it. The sender name was mine, but the language was off, too aggressive, filled with distorted half-truths and accusations that sounded like something written by someone trying to sabotage him on purpose. Attached were documents I had only just gathered for Delia, my court filings, the child support motion, even the certified divorce petition. Documents that were still in my apartment, or so I thought. Unless someone had taken them. Joanna. She had visited my apartment under the guise of checking on her grandson the week after Mark left. She had sat in my living room. She had asked to use the bathroom. She had lingered by the desk. I called Delia immediately. "This is identity fraud," she said, her voice tight with fury. "And it's a direct interference with a court order. We need to act quickly." As Delia prepared new filings, I stared at the ceiling that night and wondered just how far they were willing to go. Not just to leave, but to destroy me in the process. That night, Mark called for the first time since he left. "Are you out of your mind?" he snarled, his voice low and dangerous. "You got me fired. After everything I offered you." "It wasn't me, Mark," I said evenly. "It was your mother." He laughed, short and sharp. "That's ridiculous. Why would she do that?" "To make you look like you can't support your son. To sabotage the court ruling. To make this about me being unstable and unreasonable." "Joanna would never impersonate you," he said. But there was hesitation now. Doubt. "Then explain how the email had our legal filings. Documents that never left this apartment until she visited." Silence. "I'll call you back," he finally said. 10 minutes later, my inbox pinged with a bombshell. It was from Mark. A series of screenshots of text messages between him and Joanna. The timestamps went back 3 months. One message, dated shortly after Mark got the job offer in Lisbon, read, "Once you're settled in Portugal, we'll work on full custody. With Kendra's history of depression, it won't be hard to prove she's unfit." I stopped breathing. My postpartum depression, something I had worked through with therapy and Mark's supposed support, was being weaponized against me by the man I married, and by the woman who had pretended to care about her grandson. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a calculated conspiracy to erase me from Eli's life. Delia reacted instantly when I forwarded the messages. "We're filing an expanded motion, now including conspiracy to defraud the court and parental alienation, and we'll report the identity theft to the police. This strengthens your position considerably." "But we still don't know where the rest of the money went," I said. "And he still has the advantage. He's overseas. He could stay there indefinitely." "We need a breakthrough," Delia said. "Something that ties him to hidden assets. Something the judge can't ignore." Later that night, desperation pushed me to try one more thing. I called Darren. He answered on the second ring. "Kendra." "I'm not calling to yell," I said. "I just need your help. For Eli's sake." There was a long pause. Then, "What do you want to know?" I took a breath. "Did Mark ever mention where the rest of the money was going? The offshore accounts? Anything?" He hesitated. "A few months ago, he talked about an account in the Cayman Islands. Said Joanna helped set it up years ago to protect assets from taxes in case things ever went south." My heart pounded. "Do you remember the bank name?" "First Caribbean International, I think. Look, I didn't think he'd actually leave Eli. I thought it was just talk." But Mark hadn't just left. He had disappeared with a blueprint. That night, I remembered something else. How Mark always reused passwords. Eli's birthday, our anniversary, some combination of the two. I sat at the desktop computer and opened his cloud account login page. My fingers trembled as I typed the most likely version. It worked. Inside the account were folders labeled Travel Plans, Asset Protection, and, chillingly, Custody Strategy. There were PDF files of wire transfer confirmations to offshore accounts, a scanned passport for Chloe, even a legal risk matrix written by Joanna, listing steps to make me appear unstable, unfit, and financially dependent. I stared at the screen, disgusted and oddly clear. They had documented their entire plan like it was a business pitch. I copied everything to another flash drive and emailed the entire folder to Delia. She called within the hour. "Kendra, this is it." She sounded almost breathless. "We're filing for emergency orders to freeze the Cayman account, and we're requesting international enforcement under the Hague Convention. This is real evidence of fraud, evasion, and malicious parental strategy." I finally exhaled. We had our smoking gun. 2 days later, the court granted our motion. The Cayman account, containing over $200,000, was frozen pending investigation. For the first time, Mark's wall of distance cracked wide open. But he wasn't done. That same evening, I got a call from a voice I didn't expect. "Chloe." "Kendra," she said, sounding rattled. "We need to talk." "Kendra." Chloe's voice was tight, almost frantic. "We need to talk. Please." I hesitated. Of all people, she was the last I expected to hear from. The woman who walked off with my husband, and apparently, my life savings. "What do you want, Chloe?" She sighed, and I could hear tension crackling in the background. "Mark's unraveling. He's talking about flying back to Boston to handle things himself." "I'm scared, Kendra. This isn't what I signed up for." Her words made my skin crawl. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's not just angry at you anymore," she said. "He's hiding things from me too. He promised a fresh start. But ever since your lawyer froze that Cayman account, he's been a wreck. He told me we'd be fine because he has a backup account even Joanna doesn't know about." I sat forward. "Where?" "I don't know exactly. Somewhere in Liechtenstein. He said he moved most of the marital funds there just in case you got too clever." That was the final piece we needed. But I couldn't trust Chloe. Not yet. What do you want in return for this information? I asked. Protection, she said without pause. If Mark finds out I spoke to you, he'll turn on me. I need legal assurance I won't face charges for anything I signed or helped him with. I consulted Delia that same afternoon. We offered Chloe a conditional immunity agreement in exchange for full cooperation, documents, account numbers, and a sworn affidavit detailing everything she knew. Within hours, Chloe emailed us bank statements from a Liechtenstein account in Mark's name, containing over $215,000. She also attached text conversations between her and Mark that confirmed his intent to hide the funds from both the courts and me. They'll never find this one, he'd written. Even Chloe doesn't know where it is. All fallback funds go there. Don't trust anyone, not even her. It was surreal reading words from a man I once called my husband, talking about me like I was an obstacle to be eliminated. Delia acted fast. With Chloe's sworn statement and the new account evidence, we secured an emergency restraining order. Just hours before Mark's flight was scheduled to land at Logan International Airport. Security at the terminal was waiting when he arrived. He never even made it out of the arrivals hall. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it back, Mark's voice buzzed with disbelief and barely controlled rage. What the hell is this, Kendra? I came back to work things out. You had me served at the airport? I picked up the phone and replied via text. With a one-way ticket and no hotel booked? That's not how you work things out. Court hearing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. You should find a lawyer. The courtroom was packed the next morning. Mark looked rough. Rumpled clothes, sunken eyes, and a hastily hired lawyer who tried, and failed, to catch up on months of deception. Delia didn't waste time. She presented the Cayman account, the Liechtenstein account, and then Chloe's sworn statement. But the final blow came when she handed the judge the custody strategy document from Mark's cloud storage. A file that detailed plans to use my postpartum depression to take Eli away. Mark squirmed. His attorney stammered something about protecting financial interests, but the judge cut him off sharply. Counsel, the judge said, tone icy, I've reviewed the documentation. Your client didn't just abandon his wife and child. He premeditated a strategy to defraud this court, conceal marital assets, and manipulate custody. Spare me the interpretations. Then Delia delivered the ask. Your Honor, we request full custody of the minor child to my client, with supervised visitation for the father only. Additionally, we request a forensic accounting of all hidden funds and full asset recovery. Given the identity fraud, offshore activity, and conspiracy involved, we believe a referral to the district attorney is also warranted. The courtroom went still. The judge nodded slowly. So ordered. Mark's passport was confiscated on the spot. Every known account was frozen. And he was now under investigation, not just for financial deceit, but for identity fraud and custody manipulation. He looked at me across the room, and for the first time, I didn't see anger. I saw panic. And beneath that, the dawning realization that everything he'd worked so hard to orchestrate, every fake email, every lie, every offshore dodge, had come crashing down around him. A new kind of fallout. The fallout was swift. Within 2 weeks, Delia's team completed the forensic accounting. Not only did they recover our marital assets, they uncovered additional funds that Joanna had hidden over the years, some used to evade taxes, others likely funneled into Mark's escape plan. Joanna was charged with identity theft and interference in a court order. Her carefully manicured social life at her country club crumbled as word spread of her involvement in a fraudulent scheme to sabotage her grandson's future. Mark tried to rebuild, but the public court records, now circulating in legal newsletters and parenting forums, painted a clear picture: abandonment, fraud, and manipulation. He quickly became persona non grata in his professional circles. Chloe returned to Lisbon alone, Her cooperation had earned her immunity, but the door to Mark's new life had slammed shut. The final orders. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. I was granted full custody of Eli. Mark was awarded supervised visitation only, which, so far, he hasn't exercised. The court ordered complete restoration of all marital assets, plus coverage of my legal fees. Child support was indexed to Mark's future earnings, preventing him from ducking responsibilities through deliberate underemployment. And as for Joanna, she pled guilty to impersonation. The court spared her jail time in exchange for full restitution, but she was now legally barred from contacting me or Eli without court approval. Poetic justice, I thought. The woman who judged me for being too soft as a mother was now being judged by the law. In the months that followed, Eli and I moved into a cozy 2-bedroom condo, modest, but ours. No lies in the walls. No hidden withdrawals in the cushions. One night, as I tucked him in beneath his favorite dinosaur quilt, he asked, "Is Daddy coming to visit us someday?" I paused. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly, "but we're going to be okay, no matter what." And we were. The court victories felt powerful, but far from final. Mark still had layers of secrecy wrapped around his finances, and I had no illusions that he'd given up. His anger, his silence, his refusal to acknowledge Eli in court, it all pointed to one thing. He wasn't finished trying to win through deception, and neither was Joanna. After the emergency orders and charges were filed, she had gone quiet. Too quiet. I suspected she was still pulling strings, even with her name officially barred from contacting Eli or me. The identity fraud charge may have shaken her reputation, but it hadn't broken her. I needed something decisive, something that would bury this war of manipulation for good. That meant uncovering the last of Mark's hidden assets and proving once and for all that the two of them had acted in deliberate, coordinated bad faith, not just against me, but against the law. The cloud folder that changed everything I returned to the cloud storage account I'd accessed weeks earlier. This time, I explored deeper. Hidden inside a subfolder labeled Client Assets 2023, which I almost skipped, was a spreadsheet that looked innocent enough at first glance. But as I read through it, my stomach dropped. It wasn't client data. It was a breakdown of shell accounts. Each entry showed amounts, dates, and short notes like Joe, JD, non-disclosed, LSK, backup, in case K reacts fast. Legacy funds, mom's hold. There were deposits totaling over $500,000. Money Mark had gradually moved over the past 18 months while still living in our home, eating dinner with Eli, pretending to be a family man. He had planned everything. Worse still, several of the notes included initials I recognized: Joe for Joanna, LSK for Liechtenstein, JD for an attorney Joanna used during a previous estate battle. I printed everything, documented timestamps, and compiled a new brief for Delia. Her eyes widened as she scanned the files. "This is more than fraud," she said. "This is a blueprint for asset laundering. If the judge sees this, we can push for full judicial oversight over all his financial activity going forward." Even income he earns later? Absolutely. One last call to Darren. As thorough as the documents were, I still lacked first-hand testimony confirming that Mark and Joanna intended to hide this from both me and the courts. And surprisingly, the only person who might help now was Darren. I called him again. "Darren, I know you didn't want to get involved, but you already are. You knew what he was planning. Now you need to help fix it." There was silence, then a sigh. "He told me you wouldn't be able to keep up," Darren said. "That you'd either give up or agree to whatever he offered just to avoid drama. He said you were too emotional to fight him with logic." "Do you hear yourself?" I snapped. "He's trying to erase a mother from her child's life. This isn't logic. It's cruelty." I know, Darren said. Look, I've got the email, the one he sent to JD. I didn't want to get involved, but you're right. He forwarded it immediately. The smoking gun. The email was short but lethal. Let's finalize the LSK transfer this week. Once that's secure, I'll let her have the Boston mess. Custody's just a formality anyway. She'll never know where the real money went. And Mom's on board if we need to make her look unstable again. The subject line? Custody strategy, final phase. I forwarded it to Delia that night. The next morning, she added it to our case file with a motion requesting a court-appointed financial monitor, long-term asset oversight, permanent limitation of Joanna's involvement in any legal matters concerning Eli, and a formal referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office to investigate Mark and Joanna for coordinated financial fraud and custodial conspiracy. We'll also be requesting emergency enforcement of the support orders, Delia said. Mark's pretending he's broke, but this spreadsheet proves otherwise. Mark's last attempt at control. Just as we prepared to file, my phone rang again. It was Mark. Don't do this, he said. You're going to ruin my life. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. You already ruined mine. You turned Eli's family into a courtroom battleground. And for what? To run away with someone who didn't even last 2 months once the truth came out? There was no answer. Just shallow breathing. I gave you everything, he said finally. You think I wanted this to go public? You didn't want accountability, I corrected. And now you have it. He hung up, and that was the last time we spoke. The calm before the hearing, 2 nights before the final hearing, I walked Eli to the corner bookstore. He picked out a book about dinosaurs and rocket ships, his 2 favorite things, and held my hand the entire walk home. He didn't know what we were about to face. He didn't need to. All he needed was the safety of that small moment. My hand in his. A night without tension. A bedtime story that didn't come with court filings or hidden agendas. As I read to him that night, I realized something. This was the life I was fighting for. Not revenge, not money, just truth. Safety and the freedom to raise my child without lies, hanging over us like storm clouds. We had 1 hearing left, and I was ready. The morning of the final hearing, I stood outside the courthouse in a pressed navy dress, gripping a folder so full of evidence it felt like armor. Delia stood beside me, calm as ever, but her voice carried the weight of everything we had assembled. We've got it all, Kendra. The spreadsheets, the emails, the sworn statements. Today isn't just about closure, it's about accountability. I nodded. Let's finish this. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. Mark arrived 5 minutes late, flanked by his now visibly frazzled attorney. He looked thinner, hunched, more like a shadow of the man who once texted, "Good luck paying rent." Joanna was not present, a condition of her bail. Delia rose first. She laid out the timeline, from Mark's calculated disappearance and offshore transfers to Joanna's impersonation, and Chloe's cooperation confirming the alternate Liechtenstein account. Then came Darren's forwarded email. Custody's just a formality. She'll never know where the real money went. The judge listened, impassive, but his eyes grew colder with each new piece of evidence. Delia presented the spreadsheet, the shell accounts, the use of Joanna's estate attorney to hide money from discovery, the custody strategy document, Chloe's signed statement, the digital trail, the cloud storage folder. By the time she rested her case, even Mark's attorney looked defeated. Mark tried to speak. I didn't intend for it to... Mr. Lawson, the judge interrupted. I've seen more than enough to determine your intent. You didn't just attempt to defraud your wife. You orchestrated a multi-phase strategy to avoid financial responsibility, manipulate custody, and weaponize false narratives to destroy her credibility. The courtroom was silent. Your mother's involvement, though partially redacted due to ongoing criminal proceedings, only further underscores the depth of this conspiracy. He paused, glanced toward me. Mrs. Lawson, your documentation was meticulous, your restraint commendable, and your persistence essential. The court recognizes that you acted not out of vengeance but in defense of your child's welfare and your lawful rights. Then came the ruling. The court's final judgment: full permanent custody of Eli granted to Kendra Lawson. No visitation rights for Mark Lawson pending further psychological evaluation and court petition, which must be filed from within the U.S. jurisdiction. All recovered marital assets, including the Liechtenstein and Cayman accounts, ordered to be returned to Kendra. A court-appointed forensic accountant assigned to review any other financial activity linked to Mark or Joanna in the past 3 years. Joanna Lawson referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution. Mark's passport permanently held until the full financial penalty is paid, including legal fees, damages, and back child support, retroactive to the day he left. Delia turned to me as the judge exited. "It's over," she said quietly. "He can't hide anymore." The days that followed, I didn't celebrate. There were no balloons, no victory toasts. Instead, I took Eli to the park. We sat on a bench, watching him race around with a paper airplane and make-believe dinosaurs. He didn't know what had happened that day. He didn't need to. That was the point. I had fought, suffered, gathered evidence, made calls, dug into folders that made my hands shake, so that he never would have to. Later that week, the funds were transferred to a protected account under my name. Delia had ensured everything was watertight. Mark would never again have the power to take from us. The quiet victory. 6 months after that final hearing, I signed the closing documents on our new home. A small but sunlit 2-bedroom in Cambridge, with a corner room perfect for Eli's dinosaur posters and glow-in-the-dark stars. I returned to full-time editorial work, this time with a remote-friendly publisher that valued my skills and respected my schedule as a single mother. Joanna's indictment made quiet headlines in financial circles. Her social life disintegrated, her reputation reduced to whispers in country club corridors. She never tried to contact me again. Mark, as far as I know, tried to restart his life in Chicago, but with court-ordered oversight and legal supervision following him like a shadow, there wasn't much left to rebuild. He didn't come to see Eli, not once. And honestly, I was grateful. The final scene one evening, as I tucked Eli into bed beneath his favorite dinosaur blanket, he asked, "Mommy, is Daddy ever going to live with us again?" I paused, brushing his hair back gently. "No, sweetheart, but that's okay. We're safe. We're home." He nodded. "This is our home, huh?" "It is," I smiled. Epilogue: from survival to power. What began with a cruel message, "Good luck paying rent," ended with a full restoration of everything Mark tried to steal. But more than money, more than legal wins, I had reclaimed my dignity, my name, and my role as a mother standing tall in the face of betrayal. Mark tried to disappear with our life. Instead, I rebuilt one without him. Not out of anger, but out of love. For myself and for Eli.